Thank you, Tom. Thank you, my friends. Make no mistake about it, there is only one reason we are all here today. Because of the 535 members of the Congress of the United States, there is none more faithful to the belief in the primacy of the individual, the natural rights of every human being, the indispensability of the free market for human prosperity, and the obligation of chaining the government down to the Constitution than the Thomas Jefferson of our day, Congressman Ron Paul. Whenever history takes a turn, it is usually because of some person of greatness. And the greatness requires two things: fidelity to the truth and personal courage. It is his fidelity to the truth and his personal courage in the face of the most overwhelming odds, even among members of his own party, that has brought him to national prominence, us to this room tonight, and the realization of human liberty in our lives closer to happening in our lifetimes. That's the good news. The bad news is that things are very bad. There is a one-party system in this country. There's not a two-party system. There's a Republican version that likes war and deficits and crushing the Constitution. There's a Democratic version that likes taxes and welfare payments and giving money away to friends. Neither of them respects the inviolability of the individual, and neither of them respects the Constitution, which they took an oath to uphold. And it is our obligation, to keep their feet to the fire so that they do. If that crowd in that other room roared for Dick Cheney, they don't even belong in the same building as those who love freedom. I'll tell you a couple of stories about what the government has done. About 3 years ago in the Bush administration, there were a series of bank robberies in southeast Pennsylvania, and the robbers were very astute, and they moved with military precision, and they attacked a series of banks through an incredible amount of communication before, during, and after the robberies. And the police discovered that these folks were using cell phones, but they didn't know what their names were, so they couldn't go to a judge and get a search warrant to tap the cell phones. But they knew they were using cell phones during these bank robberies. So one of the cops came up with the following idea. Why don't we say that robbing banks is a question of national security? And therefore, under the Patriot Act, we can just go write our own search warrants, and we don't have to go to a judge. And so they did. And they wrote their own search warrants, and they served these search warrants on the telephone company in southeastern Pennsylvania, and the telephone company complied. They got the records. They found out who the bad guys were. They arrested them, tried them, prosecuted, and convicted them. This happened in the Bush administration. Last Friday, their conviction was argued before an appellate court. Now the government is represented by the Obama administration. Senator Obama, when he was a senator, railed against the Patriot Act and condemned the idea of self-written search warrants and preached the inviolability of civil liberties. But I guess something's different in the world looking out from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue than it is looking in. Here's what your government told a federal appellate court. You know how sometimes people use cell phones and they talk loud and you can overhear what they're saying? Well, that really means that they're not interested in privacy. And so the government argued to federal judges in Philadelphia, because people speak loudly on cell phones, we don't need search warrants to get their phone records. Do you see how the government, by twisting and perverting language, first, it was a matter of national security. Second, it was a matter of how loud people speak on the phone. This is your Justice Department that took the same oath to uphold the same Constitution that I did when I became a judge and Congressman Paul did when he first entered the Congress. Why is it that the government spends all of its time twisting, perverting, evading, and avoiding the Constitution instead of upholding it as they have sworn to do?